What's up 9 to 5 wealth builders, and welcome back to my channel. If you've been waiting on interest rates to drop, I've got exciting news for you because we know that ownership is one of the keys to building wealth. Now if you're new here, welcome. This is the place where 9 to 5ers earn their stripes in the world of personal finance. We don't do it just so we can live comfortably or have enough money to stunt. No, we're building real wealth over here, and we do it without side hustles and we do it without entrepreneurship. Just a good old corporate grind and smart money moves. So what's the news? Multiple sources have officially announced that the US government plans to cut interest rates in 2024. So your dreams of buying your first home might be closer than you think. But not so fast. Do you remember the summer of 2022 when people stood in lines just to put in offers on homes $50,000 above asking price or $100,000 over asking price and still got outbid by dozens of other offers? Well, everybody's been waiting on this exact same news, so the frenzy of a buying process that happened 2 years ago is going to be back, and it could potentially be even worse. But don't worry, I got you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to best prepare for the opportunity and the challenges ahead. And you'll know exactly how you can beat the competition to make your dreams of home ownership a reality. So before we get into when the rates are going to drop and just by how much they're going to drop, let's think about why are we actually talking about real estate when this is a wealth building channel. One of the biggest issues that we've all been facing in the last year or so has been inflation. Everything's raising in price. And one of the key issues that the US is facing right now that has never really happened is there's a huge gap in the price to own a property and a price to rent a property. Right now it's in our favor if we're renting, but if we're renting, our prices are going to go up. But if we can buy, we lock in our expenses for housing for the next 30 years or more. Even if you stay at the same apartment or the same house for the next 5 years or 10 years, your rent's going to increase. But when you own your property, generally speaking, your mortgage never really increases. In fact, as the interest rates drop, like what we're talking about right now, you can actually decrease your mortgage price. But the key here is without making any changes at all, you lock in your most expensive living expense and actually your most expense overall. So if you're in the market to buy your first home, then let's answer the question that you came here for. Well, I know you're always coming back, but this time you're here because you want to know how much the rates are dropping and when you can expect the government to start dropping those rates. So right now, the market is advertising interest rates about 7% and higher. Experts believe that by the end of 2024, interest rates can get as low as 5% again. This would be a significant decrease, and it would actually be pretty on par to historical interest rates. The 3%, 4%, and less than 3% were historic lows and probably won't come back for a long time, if ever, in our lifetime. The Fed meets 8 times per year, which is about every 6 weeks, and every time they meet, they come to the public and tell us how the economy is doing, which is a lever that they pull to decide if they should raise, lower, or leave interest rates alone. It's very possible that the very first meeting of 2024, which is scheduled for the end of January, they could announce that rates are going to start dropping at that point. But it's more likely that they won't start the initial drop until about May of next year, once they know that inflation is under control and the economy is still doing very well. I think if rates start dropping early in the year, we'll see very small increments of rate drops, like 1/4% or maybe even 0.5%. But if they wait until the summer to start dropping the rates, then the rates will have to drop at a much more rapid pace to make it to the 5% range. Now this is just what I've read and what the experts think about the economy, and based off of the feedback that they've gotten from the feds. Nothing is official until the Fed comes out and it makes an announcement, and when that happens, I'll be the first one to let you know. This is just to say that all the stuff that you read or hear, don't take it as a promise until you see something official. And like everything else, there's always a caveat. If you see a 7% interest rate, or let's just say the rates have already dropped and you see a 5% interest rate that's being advertised, does that mean that you're going to get a 5% interest rate? Well, it depends on your credit score. Well, your credit score and your debt to income ratio. If you've got a score in the 800s, congratulations, you can have that 5% interest rate. But if you have a lower score, like in the 600s, then you're going to have an interest rate way higher, probably back in the 7%. And if you're in the 700s, then you'll have something probably in between. Regardless of what your credit score is and what the introductory interest rate you're offered, there's always other options. But the majority of these options are unlocked when you have a little bit of money to go along with it. So before the rates drop, before you call your realtor and ask them to start looking at properties, before you even worry about your credit score, you need to know how much of a house you can afford, because that'll determine how much money you need to save in order to buy a property. Okay, rates are dropping, that's really cool, and we know that ownership is really important to our wealth building process. We talked about our credit score, and we're about to talk about how much money we need to save. But in the meantime, if this has been valuable, please like and subscribe. And while you're at it, download the free ebook that I have for you, The 12 Steps to Buying Your First Home. This guide makes the transition going from renting to buying so much less scary. It's the most simplified step-by-step walkthrough of the home buying process. So now let's jump right into how much money you need to save. When it comes to buying a house, your very first house, you should be shooting to save at least a very minimum of 4%. And that breaks down to 3% for your down payment and 1% for your closing costs. Now obviously that means you need to know exactly how much you can afford on a house payment, but regardless what that number is, you should be shooting for a minimum of 4%. Now that's just the minimum. I strongly recommend that you aim for a goal of 10% to save. It gives you some buffer, and there's no such thing as having too much money. You'll still have at least 4% for your down payment and your closing costs, but it opens up more loan options for you. You now may be considered for not only just an FHA loan, but also a conventional loan, which requires 5%. You also have the option of buying down your rate. And my all-time favorite, which is what I did when I was in the buying process, is you can use this money for paying down your debt, which will also increase your credit score, which will decrease your interest rate. Not only will this decrease your mortgage payment, but it'll also decrease your expenses. So now you have less money going out the door towards your debt and more money to spend on your brand new mortgage. Now I have the best strategy for saving up money for your brand new home purchase. Follow these steps exactly and you are guaranteed to meet your goal. Step number 1, decide your goal on how much money you want to save. This is going to be your home price multiplied by 10%. Step number 2, open a high yield savings account at a bank that you don't currently bank with. A lot of the online only banks like CIT Bank are offering 4 and 5% and even more right now. Step number 3, update your direct deposits with your employer. Divide your savings goal by the number of pay periods between now and when you want to complete your goal, and set up direct deposits from your paycheck to your new high yield savings account before your check goes to your normal bank account. Step number 4, do not sign up for any app or online banking for your new savings account. This removes all the temptation for touching that money or using it for the wrong purpose. Out of sight, out of mind. Okay, so we've gotten through the meat of the video, and now all that you need to do is figure out when is the best time to pull the trigger on your purchase, because we know that it's going to be extremely competitive, and we know that getting your offer in is only half the battle, but getting it accepted is really where the challenge is. The number 1 tip that I have is to be prepared, be ready to strike at any time. You want to be first to put your offer in, and you want to make sure it's good enough to be accepted. There's a lot of different people involved in the process that you don't want to waste anybody's time. There's a mortgage loan officer, there's a real estate agent, and of course there's you. You want to make sure your time isn't wasted as well. Get in as early as you can with your loan officers so they can let you know exactly how much of a house you can afford to buy. Then make sure your real estate agent knows that you're ready to start looking, and tell them that it doesn't have to happen now, but whenever you're ready, hopefully they're ready as well. Make sure you find a good agent as well. That's a very underrated part of this whole entire process. Once you get a number from your mortgage loan officer, now you can reverse engineer the whole situation. You know exactly how much money you need to save, and you want to be working towards your goal before you're ready to actually purchase. So as you're waiting for rates to drop, be working on your credit, be working on your savings. You want to make sure that you're ready today to be able to strike if you find the perfect house. If you buy it at 7% and you know the rates are going down, you can always refinance later. You don't really want to worry about a 1% difference. Lastly, consider a new build. If you find a really nice new build, sometimes it takes 9 months, 12 months, or even longer to build the actual house. You can get approved at 7% today. Make sure you start saving up your money, and then put yourself in a position where you're even better off by the time the house is done. And if all things work in your favor, maybe that 7% interest rate over time will decrease because of the rate drops. This is what I did in 2020. We got approved in 2019, and by the time it was time to buy the house, our interest rate had gone down because we had paid off so much debt and saved up so much money. Thanks again for watching. I hope to see you guys on the next one as well. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget, you are worthy of wealth.